back with another Arnold review, and today we're going to talk about review Eraser, which this is one of my favorites. This film for me is definitely going to be up there, and I know for a lot of Arnold fans, there's other films that, they would put above this, whether that be The Terminator or, T2, Total Recall, True Lies, etc. But, Eraser is such an entertaining film, but not only that, it's underrated. And it's also, and I know quite a few people have said this is Arnold's last, like, old school action movie. People might say, well, what about The Last Stand? That's good, but, as far as like, again, that old school, kind of, a la Commando, that type of movie, action film, this is it, for Arnold. And, now this film is 25 years old. But, aside from that, this is a film that I've seen many times. And I would like to get the Blu-ray at some point. I know it's out on Blu-ray. So, yeah, definitely will get that here at some point. But get into the film. I mean, now it's directed by Chuck Russell. Now, prior to this, Chuck Russell directed Nightmare on Elm Street 3. The Blob remake from back then. The Mask with Jim Carrey, he directed that. The Scorpion King, that movie I can watch. So I do like Chuck Russell. To me, he's a really good director. Now, the plot to the film, you have our main character, John Kruger. He's a U.S. Marshal that works for the Witness Protection Program, where he erases the identities of his witnesses and creates new ones. And meanwhile, you have this woman, Lee, played by Vanessa Williams, and she works for this corporation named Cyrez. And in the beginning, she's going undercover for the FBI to unveil some plans that are going on in this corporation where they're dealing in these super weapons. And then Cyrez, finds out about Vanessa Williams and about to kill her. So they hire Kruger to now protect Lee, Vanessa Williams' character, in the film so she can testify against these people. And then you have some other characters in the film like James Caan. He's another U.S. Marshal, Robert DeGuerin. And soon enough, Arnold discovers that, he's involved and, he's trying to get rid of Vanessa Williams. So it's up to Arnold to protect her and to stop our villains here. But again, directed by Chuck Russell, who I like as a director. The cast here is really good. Schwarzenegger as U.S. Marshal John Kruger is a badass character. And this is another film that I wish we could have gotten a sequel. I mean, I would love to see that character again. Maybe if like they made it back then. Because now apparently they've already done a remake. Yeah, a remake is in the can. I saw that like announced, I don't know, not too long ago. But yeah, they've already filmed a remake for Eraser. Like we need a remake of Eraser. Fuck that. But Arnold's great here. Vanessa Williams is good support. I thought her and Arnold, worked well off each other. James Caan is our villain here. Great actor from Misery. Rollerball, the original, and so many other films. James Coburn. Yeah, he's in the film as the chief, and he's really good here. Robert Pastorelli as Johnny. And this guy you've seen before. I think he was on the TV show Murphy Brown, and he's been in a lot of movies. Unfortunately, he's passed away. But Robert Pastorelli, his character in the film is a lot of fun. Like he appears for a little bit in the beginning, and then he comes back in the second half. I almost wish that, we saw more of that character, throughout the movie. But, for the scenes that he's given, like for the scenes that you have with Johnny throughout the film is fun. James Cromwell, he's in the film as the vice president of Cyrez. Danny Nucci, that guy you've seen before. And he's the guy on the plane that James Caan shoots. He's been in a lot of movies and such. Andy Romano, Joe Vitarelli, Tony Two Toes. Yeah, that guy, I remember he was in Analyze This. Alec Kropa as Sergei Petrovsky. I remember he was one of the bad guys in Blue Streak. Nick Chenland as this one CIA agent who works for James Caan. And I remember that scene on the plane where that guy's like, "You ever get tired of babysitting scum?" And Arnold goes, "Yeah, but in your case, I'll make an exception." I always love that line. But, the cast is really good here. I mean, everybody plays their part well. Arnold, again, as John Kruger, great character. I wish we could have seen another film like, if back in the day, if they made a sequel, I think it should have happened. Vanessa Williams is good support. James Caan, great antagonist. James Coburn, Robert Pastorelli, James Cromwell. You got a lot of James here in the cast. But, and then some other faces, like Oleg Krupa, and I hope I'm saying that right. Mark Rolston, like that guy you've seen before. He was in Rush Hour, and some other supporting players here. But really good cast. But talking about the action, there's a lot of great, scenes of action throughout the movie. I mean, the film opens up where you have Robert Pastorelli's character Johnny. He's getting beat up by these guys that want him dead. And then Arnold shows up and takes him out in great Arnold fashion. And then he starts the process of faking their deaths. So, he brings in these two bodies, puts them down on the floor. And then he starts to set the house on fire. And Robert Pastorelli's like, "What are you doing? They killed you and they turn on each other." "Right. Those sons of bitches." And then, when you get into the plot of the film, when this corporation finds out about Vanessa Williams, they send some people after her at her home. And that's where Arnold shows up to protect her. And that's when you first see that great railgun, which is a great aspect of this movie. And it was just really cool to see. I mean, and I don't know why, like, after this film, we never saw that again. Like, we saw something like that in that game Perfect Dark. For the few of you that remember that game, some people in my age group, that game Perfect Dark for Nintendo 64, there was a weapon in there that was similar to that, where you could see through walls and what have you. But, and you do have, like in this film, in the finale, you have Arnold pick up two railguns, which is a great scene. But after that, like after this film, you never really saw that again, like that railgun. It's a really cool, aspect of this movie is, that weapon. And it was just a badass weapon. Definitely one of my favorite movie weapons. But yeah, so you see the railgun in that scene. So you got some good action there. And then a little bit later on, when you have Arnold and James Caan, they go on this little mission to save this witness. And that's where you see James Caan's character turn. And then it leads to stuff on the plane where they had drugged Arnold, and basically in that time they've located Vanessa Williams because James Caan's character is involved. And then when Arnold wakes up, he realizes what's going on, and that goes into some action on the plane. We get into like a little shootout, and then Arnold's hanging on the outside, and he does have a parachute on. So when he lets go, he's in the air with the parachute, shooting at the plane. And then he kind of does a twirl back down to Earth, lands in a junkyard. Where is this? Earth, welcome. And then you got some fun, and that leads to another fun action scene. some of the action scenes at the zoo where he kills the alligator, which I know that's one part of the film that doesn't really hold up that well, but, he has a great line, your luggage. But that's another great scene. Some good gunplay at the zoo. And then you got some stuff where they break into Cyrez a little bit later on, the corporation. There's some great shootouts there. Arnold kicking ass. And then you got the third act at the docks. Where Robert Pastorelli, gathers these other characters like Tony Longo and John Snyder and the other guy from Joe Vitarelli. And unfortunately, what's unfortunate is out of those groups, like out of that little group of guys, Joe Vitarelli's passed away. Tony Longo's passed away. And yeah, Robert Pastorelli's passed away. I think there's only one guy left, and that's Sal. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. I know it's sort of a grim note, but yeah, that little group of guys, nobody screws with the Union. They get involved in the finale of the film where they're trying to stop these weapons from being shipped. And so the third act is exciting because you got, Arnold with the 2 rail guns, kicking ass and, just entertaining stuff. And, really good score by Alan Silvestri, and I really enjoyed the score here. Now I know, apparently, and this is some info that I copied, but the director and the producer really didn't get along during the filming. Schwarzenegger was the voice of reason. Like he was able to, talk to each man separately, to make the film work. And, like I said before, this film is, by Schwarzenegger fans to be considered, one of the last old school action movies. And, at the end of the day, Eraser, like I said, it's definitely a favorite of mine. I just feel it's underrated. It's definitely one of the more underrated 90s action movies, and Arnold's character is a badass, great supporting cast. Vanessa Williams, James Caan, James Coburn, Robert Pastorelli's fun. A lot of the action sequences here are entertaining. Some might say over the top, but, it's escapism. It's fun. It's well filmed. I mean, yeah, you could say like maybe some of the weak spots, the alligator being CGI. Yeah, that doesn't really hold up too well. But there's a lot more good here because you also have the great railgun. And you get a lot of that, you get a lot of railgun action in the third act. So the cast is really good. Chuck Russell's direction is solid. And the action sequences are highly enjoyable. Nicely paced. And again, I keep saying this, but it's definitely underrated. Deserves more than a 6.1 in IMDb, and I know that's just me. But yeah, Eraser, again, it's definitely going to be in my top favorites. So that's my review for Eraser. Just want to thank you guys for watching. And next up, I'll be talking about Jing All the Way. Because put that cookie down! Now!